Melvin was so consistent, and I remember I think that was just my biggest thing. I remember telling my friends, I'm like, I'm talking to this guy, and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, he's so nice to me, and he's so consistent, and like this is what I need. And I think for a lot of women, that's what a lot of women need, just pure consistency. Like you are who you are every single day. You're showing up every single day, being
Mhm.
who you told me who you would be.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Flip That Switch. I'm your boy B to the Sis Naive, and we are back with another episode. If you didn't get a chance to go watch the previous episode, please go back and watch that. As a matter of fact, before you watch this one, go back and watch that one. But today we're going to be diving into a new episode, and we're going to be talking about how did I know she was the one? And vice versa. How did I know he was the one? So hopefully this episode can really give you insight and help someone who is maybe trying to figure out if they're with the right one or not. And it's a situation where, maybe this story can help. Maybe there are some nuggets that can be dropped today to kind of inspire someone who's in a similar situation of, is this person the right one? So before I do that, I do want to introduce the couple that I'm going to be interviewing today. This is a couple that we met about 2 years ago at a wedding. It was a mutual friend. Well, the bride was his cousin, and obviously it was one of Destiny's friends that they've been friends since like elementary school. And so we went to Italy to the wedding, and we met this couple that you see on the screen today. And when I talk about just like hitting it off like right away, it was a right away. Like we started talking, and from there we just been rocking with each other ever since. And we've been out to Philly to go see them, and they've come out here to hang out with us. And we recently just went with them to London, which was a great trip. And it just really solidifies the already cultivated friendship, especially when you can travel with somebody and it's just going to be a fun trip, no drama, no issues, and y'all can really just go vibe and have fun, and the energy is going to be there, the vibes are going to match. And so I would like to introduce our good friends Melvin and France to the show. So welcome, y'all.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this episode with me. So first and foremost, let me ask y'all, how are y'all doing? Like, how is life treating y'all?
Great.
Good. Busy, man. It's summertime, work's going crazy, but and then trying to match her schedule, and it's we make it do what it do, So
Exactly. Exactly. And Melvin, what do you do?
I'm a pilot for the airlines. So
Okay. And France, what do you do?
I'm a flight attendant for the airlines.
How long you been a pilot, Melvin?
Already 23 years, but 19 years professionally. So
Okay. And how long you been a flight attendant, France?
8 years, not nearly as long as Melvin.
Right. No, that's awesome. How is it like just being married in it, but being in the same industry? Does it make for some really like pretty good conversations? Like just some good pillow talk? Like how is it being married in the same industry?
It's good. I mean, I think it helps, like schedule wise. We understand each other's schedule and how it works. But as far as conversations, I mean, we swapped all the stories and people would never believe.
some days it'd be like, you get on the ground and like, you call your significant other and you're like, listen to this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I want to be like, what? And you're like, that's crazy, but it's just, being in the same industry, you have that kin, and, you can discuss stuff that normally if you were with somebody who is outside the industry, they'd be like, okay, break it down for me, but we have those words that, are industry standard that we can kind of bounce off each other and be like, yeah, either that pastor is about to get in trouble or, so and so, like, man, they're really putting it all out there. And, you're just like, well, like as long as it's, not us, then, we good. So,
Dope. That's awesome.
yeah.
So how long you guys been together?
On 7 years.
7 years in July, but married for 5 in September.
Okay. And how did you meet? Talk to me a little bit about like what that was like when you guys first met. What was it? Was it a love at first sight type of thing? Did friends play hard to get? Like, talk to me a little bit about when y'all first
You
met.
know, it was that Chris Brown, yo scenario. I don't know your name, but excuse me, miss. I
Oh
see
my
you from
gosh.
across the room.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Actually,
Yeah,
on an airplane, which happens. I guess it still happens.
yeah, yeah.
But
Fact.
yeah, it does. It does still happen on an airplane.
So, long story short, I was traveling as a passenger on her airline. I was going out to Alaska to meet up with the airplane that I was flying because they're doing some Asia flying, and I was in the window seat. Guy next to me bought my iPad, and I spilled my drink on myself. So, like, I'm in plain clothes like this, just button up some jeans, and now I smell like whiskey, Jack Tennessee Honey to be exact. And I was like, so just trying to get her colleagues' attention,
Yeah, I
and
was actually working the flight, so he was
Okay.
like, excuse me, I spilled, and my colleague didn't see him, but I did,
Okay.
and just replaced his drink, gave him something to clean himself up with, and apparently that was enough.
Wow. Okay.
in all
So,
fairness, like, oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
oh no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can.
In all fairness, like I had traveled on her company before and had not had great experience, so this was kind of like an out of the box experience for me. So I was like, wow, like they really do care about the passenger. Because my previous times, I'm like, man, if I had to fly on this, airline again, I'm good. Like, but she changed the dynamic, and during a few drinks later, that liquid courage gets in you, and I was like, she's cute, but I'm not trying to be that dude. But
Okay.
also, I was like, I've been single for 3 years at that point. I said, let me shoot my shot, and I passed the note to a gate agent that gave it to her because I had to get out of Dodge, and I wasn't expecting nothing, but she hit me back, and I was like, okay.
You passed the note to another flight attendant.
To the gate agent. So
Oh,
I was one
okay.
of the last people off, and because you're not allowed to go back down to the airplane, I gave the note to the gate agent, and they just asked her out to coffee, like, hey, do you want to grab coffee sometime? And I didn't think it would matriculate into anything, but
But it did. Yeah, I got the note, and she was like, "Oh, like all the flight attendants, they're like schoolgirls. They're like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And I literally said, "Oh, well, this will be fun, if only for a little while." And one of the flight attendants looked at me and she said, "Or forever, ha 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 ha." And we all just went our separate ways. And lo and behold, forever it is.
yeah.
So before she gave you the note, and you had saw obviously he had spilled his drink, and you brought him another drink. Did you think that he was attractive?
Yeah, but you know what? I don't really think that way. I'm at work, I'm doing my job. There's like 160 other people I need to tend to. Like, yeah, he's cute, but I'm not like, "Oh, did you see 17 Alpha?"
Yeah. Okay.
I
You
felt
wasn't.
like you looked at me like Big Lotto was like, yeah. I was like, hey, so
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the note said, "Would you like to go get coffee?" And did you take some time to really think about it, or were you immediately like, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give this guy a try"?
The funny thing about I think like when things are meant to be is your head doesn't get in the way.
Wow.
So, in a normal circumstance, I really would have been like, I don't know. This is really weird. I don't usually like address passengers that way or respond to passengers that way. But when I tell you my head didn't get in the way at all, it was almost like a no brainer. And
Okay.
I think that was just like divine intervention. Like it was a no brainer. I was just like, okay, yeah. I texted him that same night before we took back off because I was going back to Minneapolis.
Mhm.
And I mean, that was history. That was it.
Now, how long had you been single before Melvin?
3 years.
Oh, so you both had been single 3 years.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's a heck of a story, man. That is awesome. And like you said, y'all it was divine because it was like I mean, how many people can just give someone a note to give to somebody? Like a lot of things have to come into play. Like she's got to make sure she gets the note to you. You got to make sure you read the note, and then as busy as you are, make contact with them and call them. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where, like, I truly believe that you make time for the things that's important. No matter how busy you are, no matter what the schedule is like, if this is something that you want to invest in and cultivate, you make time for it. So, I mean, that's
100%. And I mean, we'll just get to that point too. Like when we met, I lived in Dallas and I was based out of Minneapolis, and Melvin lived in Philadelphia. So even like our dating periods, like either he was coming out to Dallas or I was going to Philadelphia
Mm-hmm.
in between work trips to see each other. But it's true, you make time for what you want. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And also I am like when I wrote that note, like that is totally out of character for me to approach in that situation. Usually like I like to either like know somebody or like at least be in the presence and have a conversation, if you're gonna go down that road. But, it's just one of those things where I had that feeling where I was like, what do I have to lose? Totally out of character for me. And I was like, if it works, it works. If not, and you know, it turned out to this, So
yeah, you did something that you normally wouldn't do. And I'm sure there was a little bit of uncomfortability with that too, because
100%.
yeah, it's like out of the norm, but it's like
Yeah.
it's crazy how like a lot of times when things happen is because we've done something out of the norm or we've thought outside the box or done something that we normally wouldn't do. So it's crazy how that works. But so okay, so let's get to the dating, right? So you guys are dating. First of all, how with your schedules and living in different states, how often were you seeing each other?
Oh, I was probably coming to Philly like at least twice a month, and I mean for like 4 days or so at a time.
Right.
Okay.
So between my trips, I would come, and then Melvin, his schedule worked a little bit differently when we first met. So
Mhm.
Melvin would, the typical like pilot schedule, you're on for like 3 or 4 days, and then you're off for 3 or 4 days or whatever. But
Mhm.
he used to do like he'd be on for 18 days straight
Oh
out
wow.
of the country.
Yeah.
And so for him, it was kind of like when he was home, those 10 days out of the month, he was sleeping and recovering and, trying to get ready for his next trip. So it was a lot easier for me just to get on a plane and go to Philadelphia than it was for him, I think, to consistently get on an airplane and come to Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah. But like if she was like, hey, I'm going to be XYZ city, like I would make my way there.
Yeah, he'd come on a
Yeah.
layover or something like that, to
Yeah.
make it work. But
Okay. Awesome. So now we're dating. How many dates in before you guys started realizing like, okay, you know what? This could potentially be something. This could. How many dates was it? Would you say?
I mean, personally, I knew it. Like, I think my spirit knew it the first date.
Wow.
Like, we had such a great first date. And then I came home and my mom was like, "Oh, how was your date?" And I literally looked at her in the eye and I said, "I just want to let you know that's your son." And I walked out of her room. And she was like, "Oh my gosh." So I kind of knew immediately. Now, for him, I don't know, but that was for me.
What
I mean,
about
yeah,
you?
she had to get off her. I'm just kidding. No, for me, it was the second date actually. Our second date was in Seattle. I had like a day and a half there, and then back to doing some Asia flying and stuff. And she came out and met me. So we had a nice little date night. Went and saw the Chihuly Museum, which is like a glass sculpture museum. Did a
Mhm.
nice little dinner. But I had dated people before. I had been in long term relationships and stuff. And you have friends that are like, when and people tell you that throughout life, and you're like, I mean, if that works for you, cool, but like, I don't really, believe in that. And on that date, it hit me. It was just like she was the one, and it was like if a freight train came and smacked you with that information, that's how it felt. And I was like, whoa! It was just like this out of body, just kind of like, And at that point, I just was like, started talking to my boys. It's like, I think, and they're like, hey, I mean, if it's for you, it's for you. They hadn't met her yet, but they heard all the good stuff, and So, I just started looking at rings and, just trying to figure out the proposal thing.
Wait,
And
you started looking at rings when, like after the second date?
after the second date, man, like that, like when I say it hit me, it hit me. I was like, okay, like this is what we doing, but like out of my entire dating history, that never happened, and
Yeah,
I just felt like, when the spirit talks to you, you listen, you follow, so
absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't. I don't knock people that take 4 and 5 years to know or figure out, but it doesn't have to take that long. It could be you could realize. I mean, I do believe in love at first sight. I do believe that you can fall in love with somebody and it doesn't take a year to do so. You could do it in 6 months. Me and Destiny, we when I proposed to her, we got married 30 days later. You know,
Oh my
wow,
gosh.
yeah, I
that
don't
is
know. Yeah, yeah. So like I proposed to her on her birthday, which was June 12th,
okay.
and this was during COVID. And actually, to kind of back up, like I deep down, I knew Destiny was the one, like very early as well. But what solidified it was when I had got COVID. So when COVID first came out, I had got it, and this was like before people knew it was COVID. You know, and she took care of me. Like she would, make my meals and go pick up my medicine and I had to go to the ER a couple times. She went with me to the ER because I had respiratory issues as a result. She really just like took care of me, and she wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna leave, and then when you heal from this, I'll be back, or I'm gonna like. I didn't expect that. I thought she was gonna go quarantine somewhere, and I was just gonna holler at her when I healed up. And she just stayed right there by my side the whole time. And so after I healed up, I'm like, okay, you know what? If she can do that, like, yeah, that's the one. And so shortly after, I started looking at rings. But yeah, I proposed to her, and then we were married 30 days later. It was during COVID, so we could only have like 10 people at the church. And then we went and had a nice little reception dinner where more people were able to come. But it's like when it's no need to waste time. I feel like if you are in a position where you're committed enough to someone to propose to them, you don't have to have this long, drawn out engagement. You've already told yourself by proposing that I want this to go to the next level and I'm committed enough. So why have a 6, 7 year engagement? In my opinion, some people
Absolutely.
do, but I just don't feel the need to draw it out. You know,
About it was 10 months that we were together when we got engaged, and most of that 10 months was like it was purchasing the ring, but also like planning an engagement party.
yeah,
So I told her that was my uncle's, like I think it was his 80th birthday party, whatever. And I was like, hey, it's a surprise birthday party. Like, it's my favorite uncle. And, she's like, all right, cool. I'll try to be there. I was like, yeah, yeah. Try to be there if you can.
yeah,
And, looking back at it after, she's able to attend and be there and her whole family was there, it was a surprise. It was beautiful. She was like, well, what were you going to do if I couldn't make it? I was like, I didn't think that far. To be honest with you, I was just like, hey, please be there. She was able to get off, came in that morning, and she had brought a dress with her for my uncle's birthday party that, is a beautiful dress, but it wasn't for the occasion. And
right.
so she's like, what do you think about this? And I was like, I
The
mean,
dress was blue and Melvin wanted white. And I
Okay.
said, why would I wear a white dress to a party that's not even my party? That's rude. And so little did I know it was, an engagement party for us. But definitely, I mean,
yeah,
I think it's so cliche, but it really is true. When you know, you know.
you
And
know.
people say it all the time. It's in
Mhm.
all the storybooks. And, you think it's fluff until it happens.
Yeah.
I think another thing that people may not talk about too is that, like, I think you have to be mature enough to accept that when you know. Because
Hmm.
I think that there are a lot of people that know, and they could be in those 6, 7, 10 year relationships,
Yeah.
but there might be a little bit of a maturity level. And it's not to call that individual immature. It's just like we're all at different stages, and when you're ready to receive that, then you can sit there and be like, you know what, this is it, you know. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think it is about the maturity of the individual and knowing that, you know, waiting 1 or 2 or 3 years. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really change anything. You know, it's going to be the same person whether you're married or not in 3 years. Like, now I get it. Obviously, you know, with marriage there comes other benefits, right? You know, but at the same time, it's like, again, for you to propose to that person, you know your personnel, you know what you're getting yourself into, you know who you have. So yeah, I'm like you. I don't think it needs to drag on. But that's awesome, man. That's an awesome, awesome story. So the question I would ask you is, when you find the right person, because obviously you guys are right for each other. Y'all are a beautiful couple, by the way. Like, I just,
thank
man,
you, thank you. You know,
y'all are such a beautiful couple, such an inspiration. When you are dating someone, you guys were dating, and you said it was about 10 months. What were some of the boxes that she was checking off for you to make you say, like, you know what, I don't need to waste any time with this, I feel like this is the one? So I kind of want both of you to kind of talk to me a little bit about the boxes that the other person was checking off. And you know, you can I mean, you don't have to get detailed. It's just kind of talk to me a little bit about some of the things that they were doing that wowed you to be like, okay, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think for me, like I I I'm not that girl who's like he needs to make XYZ, he needs to have this, but I need to see the makings of something.
Mm,
So for me, like, and even down to like emotionally, mentally, Melvin was just so consistent.
wow.
And a lot of times, like when you're dating, people just like, they might hit you back, they might not. And that has come to be kind of normal in dating.
Mhm.
But Melvin was so consistent. And I remember, I think that was just like my biggest thing. I remember telling my friends, I'm like, I'm talking to this guy, and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, he's so nice to me, and he's so consistent. And like, this is what I need. And I think for a lot of women, that's what a lot of women need, just pure consistency. Like, you are who you are every single day. You're showing up every single day, being
Mhm.
who you told me who you would be.
Mhm.
And but on top of that, I mean, Melvin very driven with his career, and that spills over to even outside of his career. He just had like a lot of just I'm not going to say potential because it was more than that. It was Melvin was solid all by himself.
Wow.
And that is what I really, really, really enjoyed, because for me, I felt like I was solid all by myself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think when you have two people that are sure about who they are, sure about what they're doing, and sure about where they are in life, like, that's perfect. And not,
Absolutely.
it happens, right? Where you have to pull somebody else up or, motivate, and that's all beautiful too in its own right. But
Mhm.
for me, we were two sure people who knew what we were doing in life, knew where we were headed, and that was the tick off for me.
That's awesome. Now, before you go, Melvin, had you always been someone who was consistent, like even in past, like was that just a part of who you were, consistency, like in other relationships?
I think especially in this career, I told a previous relationship years ago, that flying comes first, and that's my first true love, and then everything else kind of falls after that. But it's just like I've always been very goal oriented, and that spills into relationships too. Like if we're together, we're together, and like I'm going to ride from you, we're ride or die. I'm
Hmm.
not out here trying to do whatever and whatever, and that's not to take away from anybody that does. I just think, for me personally, it's always been like, very methodical about what I do. So,
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. So, what was it about her?
so for her, she was really enchanting, and not in like a fairy tale way, but in terms of like when she said she was a whole person, she was a whole person. Like our conversation flowed in terms of like, when I met her, she's looking at buying her first house. She was solidified in her job and she was pretty new at it, but like she had other goals and dreams, and like that goal oriented, that thrive to do more and to, just, I hate to say level up, but like consistently improve yourself from a life perspective and also like a career perspective, like was very like attractive to me because she was like probably the first person I've ever met like that. And I was like, wow, like not even like I met my equal, but like I met somebody that is motivating me to be better.
Mm,
And like I feel like, when you go to church, you listen to your pastor, and your pastors, drop some knowledge on you, you're like, wow, that was deep. And like
right.
when you get that from somebody that you're dating, you're like, whoa, like, it's like, okay, let me get myself together. And it makes you want to be a better person, not not just from a career perspective, but just as a person in general. Like she's very sweet. She loves to help people, and it just like she was inspiring to me. And I
Mm,
feel like when somebody else can inspire you, whether it's in a work relationship or whether it's in an emotional, in a love relationship, that's deep. And so she was just and still is my motivation for everything I do. So I just appreciate her, and it's my best friend, and go on and on about that. So
wow, that is awesome. See, and you know what? It's so much that we could unpack there. But number one, I like how you said, France, that you know it wasn't about you having materialistic things, but it's about I just need to see that you have goals, you have a vision. You're out here trying, and social media and society, I believe, has brainwashed us to think that I need to be with someone who's making $300,000 a year, who's got a nice house, a nice car, and the fancy this and the fancy watches and the chains. And I need to be with a woman who, you know, has a nice body and I don't know, she's whatever the case may be.
yep.
And I think that's what fails people like 95% of the time because it's like, you have to be of the mindset of number one, society and social media is all a fabrication. And what it boils down to is that if you truly love someone and you want to be with someone, you can get with someone and build the empire. Like you said, as long as he has a goal or he has a vision or he's trying to progress, like, he may be, I don't know, for example, flipping burgers at McDonald's, but he has a goal and a vision to do that until his business kicks off or climbing the corporate ladder at McDonald's. So a lot of people have to understand that it's not about what someone has, but it's about their character and who they are on the inside. Because you can get with somebody that's going to make 300,000, but how do you know they're not going to cheat on you? How do you know they're not going to abuse you? How do you know that you're not going to be one of many? You know what I mean? And so I like how you pointed that out. And then Melvin, I like how you pointed out the fact that just like how enchanting she was, just the conversations you guys have, just her challenging you. Like, how many people out there are challenging you to be better? You
I mean,
know
yeah.
that
Most of the time it's either yourself, your parents, those loyal friends, those loyal friends that push you, to that point. But there's only so far they can push you. It takes an intimate relationship. It takes your person to really get you to that next level. And as I said to her, when I was with my old company, when we met, the dynamics started to change. I leveled up at my previous company. I was able to get new, I guess, opportunities within the company and also opportunities to leave the company. I always tell everybody that none of that happened until I met her.
mm,
So it's kind of like when you're with the right person, you'll accelerate into that next level. But I was kind of stuck at that plateau before I met her.
yeah,
So
no, yeah, it's literally about adding value and not subtracting and not draining someone, bleeding them dry. You get into a relationship, you have to add value. And I think a lot of people take that for granted. It's like, no, it's like when you meet the right person, you supposed to challenge them to be better. They have to come away from it saying, you know what, I'm a better version of myself because of you. I'm the same way. I'm a better version of myself because of Destiny, you know. And early on, when we were in our relationship, some of the things that she was challenging me on, I didn't receive everything well, but I knew it was coming from a good place, you know. And that's really what it's all about. It's like how do I add value to this person's life? And if there was one thing that someone would ask them about me, what would they say? The one thing I would want them to say is that she challenged me to be better, you know? So that's awesome. I just, man, y'all just, oh, that is dope. Okay. So y'all are married now. What's kind of the next steps for y'all? What's the next, what goals do y'all have as a couple?
I mean, goal wise, I feel like these last 4.5 years, we have been really just like excelling. So when I met Melvin, he had his own house, which was great.
Hmm.
Um, 2 years ago, we bought another house, amazing.
Hmm.
Probably in another, I don't know, 5 years or less, we'll be on our way to another house. But as far as
Pray
like
for me, y'all.
goals, as far as like goals, just having fun and enjoying marriage, I think that is just so important. Like, and Melvin and I were big on going on vacation, like with friends, like you guys, and even just by ourselves, just to make sure that we're reconnecting with each other. And I think outside of like ensuring that we're continuing to enjoy our marriage, like married people should be doing, the rest is irrelevant. Like, okay, starting a family, that's all great, but are you having fun when it's just you two? Do you still love each other like you did? And I know that times change, and every day is a new day full of new challenges. But really, yeah, capitalizing on just being happy, continuing to be happy, continuing to appreciate each other, not take each other for granted.
Yeah. And then, also prioritizing family. So, like, she has a lot of nieces and nephews. I have my own nieces and nephews. So, like, just delving into them, spending time with family, and just growing in that aspect as well. And then we've looked at, like, a few, I want to say, like, financial ventures and stuff, and,
Yeah,
like, deciding if that was right for us. And, the ones that we have looked at more than at the time. But, just kind of solidifying the future wealth pattern for our family, so that, like, I always say, if I want to make it so that my wife, if she wants to work, she can work. If she just kind of wants to kick back, she can. But where, we don't have any financial strains, thankfully. But where it's more so like, truly, she goes to work for fun, and not like, okay, like, I have to make so many hours a month to, just continue where we are.
just
So
building those stepping
yeah,
stones while we're young and while we can, of some additional income, additional wealth, some generational wealth, hopefully
there
sometime
you
in the
go. Yeah,
future. So, and yeah, just trying to build those stepping stones now while it's just him and I.
yeah.
Absolutely. I love it, man. That's a bit, hey, that's vision. You gotta have a vision. You
Yeah.
gotta have a vision. And when you start dating, again, it boils down to the person needs to have some type of vision. Because if you don't have a vision, you're gonna fail. And then now you're trying to bring someone else into you not having a vision. It's not a recipe for success. You gotta have a vision, and sounds like you guys have things in place. And yeah, life is gonna obviously throw you challenges and throw you curveballs, but I always tell people, when there's a plan and purpose on your life that God has for you, the train can't be stopped unless you stop it. You know, there's
Absolutely.
obstacles that come along, but at the end of the day, like, what's for you is going to be fulfilled. And it's just really you going out there and putting in the work to do it, you know?
That's actually so motivating, because when you think about it that way, it's like, as long as you're trying, you can't fail. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. What's going to be for you is for you. And that's solid. That's solidified.
Where they say,
Yeah.
like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Right.
So if you give up, then you're already losing right there. But if you continually push forward, as you mentioned, you'll never lose, especially when you're doing it with your partner. So
Yeah. And I always tell people that the opportunity doesn't go away; it just goes to the next individual. So imagine you looking over at somebody else living out what really should be your vision and your goals, but you didn't take advantage of it. So now you're looking over here. Now here comes jealousy and the hate because this person's over here. They
Oh,
created their lane, and
Yeah.
you just over here mad because
Right.
you didn't do it. You didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
that sounds
And
hard.
so, yeah. All right. So last thing, I always ask this question to everybody. So Melvin and France, let's say you are sitting across the table from, I don't know, 21-year-old Melvin and France, right? You're having a conversation with them and they're asking you, what are some things that I need to look for in order for me to make sure that this person is the right person for me? Maybe they're not trying to navigate dating and maybe they got a prospect on their radar and they've gone on a couple dates, but they just don't know like what to look for. If they asked you that, what would you tell them? Like, what are some things to look for to know if that individual is right for me or not?
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, and so take self out of it
Yeah.
and kind of just give generalities as like, okay, I should be looking for XYZ, just kind of.
So I'll start and I'll
Sure.
just have a few. I would
Okay.
say, for one, like communication. How does that person communicate with you? Are they effective with their communication? How does that person handle conflict? Like, these are all kind of big ticket items that they have the potential to make or break a relationship. Like, is that
Ooh.
person a hothead? Like, those are big ticket items. But also, like, how do you feel when you're around that person? How do they make you feel when you're not around that person? Do they make you feel stressed or you're anxious because you feel like maybe they're doing something else? Like, all of those things, I think play a part. I mean, even when you're dating, like, trust comes easily
Hmm.
and it's ruined even quicker. So I,
Wow.
I, I think even when you're dating, like, if you can try, and I probably tell myself, like, how do you feel when you're with that person, which is important, but how do you feel when you're not with that person? What do you think? What goes through your head? And I think that could answer, like, okay, maybe this might be the right person or maybe it's not.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think what I would tell a 21-year-old would be more so. I think I'm leaning more on the trust aspect just because of the career that I'm in, but I think that it kind of goes regardless of, career, is that what is the trust aspect of that person? What have they shown you where you're like, okay, in beyond a reasonable doubt, if this person has my back. Also look at the relationships that that person holds. How are they with their friends, but more importantly, how are they with their family? If it's a girl looking at a guy, how does that guy treat his mom? How is that relationship, and vice versa? If it's a guy looking at a girl, like how is that girl's relationship with her father? And if the father's not present or if the mother's not present, in that absence, how do they deal with the family dynamic? Is there are there red flags there? And I don't even want to say red flags because I don't really like that word, but are there indicators there that may lead to trouble later on? That could be that make or break point in a relationship. But the last thing I would say is look at the loyalty. For me, I'm personally loyal, and I know we're taking self out of this, but like I feel like if you can see somebody's loyalty very early on, and if
Hmm.
it's not there, that will affect every aspect of the relationship. If you have loyalty, you can work through a lot of stuff, because, the core values are going to be there. The love will build over time. The finances, if that's something that you guys are worried about, that'll come in time. But like, those are tangibles that you cannot buy. And so I think if you look at the trust, the family slash friends dynamic, and then loyalty, and I know loyalty and trust kind of go hand in hand, but often more than not they don't, which is the sad part. So you can say somebody's trustworthy, but are they going to be loyal? The fact that they are trustworthy may be the catalyst where there may be a lot of open doors because a lot of people do trust that individual, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not loyal to any one particular tribe. They're just good at the game. So those would be the aspects that I would kind of pass on to a 21-year-old if they're going to listen, because a lot of people told me a lot of stuff at 21, and
Man, tell you what, I look back over my life and I'm like, man, if I had listened to this person at 21, wow, how much more better would I be? Because I was a hothead. I thought that I knew it all. I thought that I had it all together and couldn't really tell me anything. And I just felt like because of my experiences that I went through, I was just qualified to not accept constructive criticism or not accept feedback. So I'm totally there with you. It's got to be the person that's going to be willing to listen and just really receive it. And you take certain, even if everything isn't for them, you take certain things and apply it. Just to see what sticks. But yeah, I remember the days.
I think the one last thing too that I might add there is that I would tell somebody in that space to slow down too, because I feel like our younger selves looking back were so, it almost was like we wanted to speed up time in order to hit certain benchmarks that we felt were important at the time. But when you look back at it, they really didn't play a major role. We
Mhm.
were just speeding up time for no reason. So it's like, take your time, get to know that person. Just like you said, don't go off of there's no Instagram. Well, actually, it might have been Instagram back then. I ain't even gonna go down there. But the social aspect wasn't there. So, now with that element, don't be so quick to be like, oh man, she bad, or, he bad, or whatever term you may use, get to know the core of that person and the qualities that that person brings and go from there.
Get to know their character.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the other stuff fades away, the looks and all that. And maybe it won't, but maybe they will. And now what do you have? It's a person's character, what's on the inside, their heart. And that is what's going to sustain those relationships. Looks are cool. I mean, yeah, obviously you got to be attracted to the person, but at the same time,
Absolutely.
that shouldn't be the end all be all. Because man, I'm telling you, what's on the inside is what's going to sustain through everything. A person could go out here, God forbid, and get in an accident, and now their face could be, then what? You know. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Also, you said something about the indicators, and really, it's about playing chess. It's really about it's foreshadowing and foreseeing, like you said, how those indicators can become a potential issue later on down the line. See, a lot of people, they live for the moment, which is fine in relationships, but you also got to play chess. You got to be like, 4 or 5 steps ahead. This red, or I know you don't like the word red flag, but this indicator, how do I see this playing out within, later on down the line where this could be a potential issue? So that's another thing as well. So great perspectives there, man. This was good. This was really, really good. I appreciate y'all for just coming on and really just giving your story. And I really hope that this helps someone who is in a situation where they've looking for the right one, or they found the right one, and they want to make sure that it's the right one. So I definitely appreciate you guys for coming on and sharing your story.
For having us.
No problem. All right. So make sure you follow us on IG, where we post reels from the episode. And if you can't follow us, you can listen to us via audio wherever you get your podcast at Flip That Switch Podcast. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us, but just make sure one way or the other you are tapping in with us. And again, I just want to thank you, France and Melvin, for coming on. Truly appreciate y'all. And we're going to see y'all.
I imagine next few months we'll probably be in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, come check y'all out.
Oh, please do. Please do. Please do. It's always a good time when we link up. So please do. All right. Well, we're going to see y'all for the next episode, and we out. Peace.